The spotlight cuts to black in the middle of courtesy of the red, white and blue. 15,000 people go silent in half a heartbeat. Toby Keith's hand drops from the microphone and his eyes lock onto something in the third row that makes his jaw tighten. The band stops on a dime. No explanation, no warning, just dead air and the kind of tension that makes grown men hold their breath. In that frozen moment, every person in that arena knows something just went catastrophically wrong, but what they don't know yet is that the woman standing over a 75-year-old man wearing a red MAGA cap is about to become the center of a cultural firestorm that'll rip through newsrooms and social media for weeks. They don't know that Toby Keith is about to make a decision that'll cost him headlines, invite accusations and put his entire reputation on the line in front of a sold-out crowd. And they sure as hell don't know that by the time this night is over, an elderly veteran who came to this concert alone will walk out with more than just a memory. The woman is 30 years old. She's a high school teacher from Portland. She paid good money for her ticket, and she's been recording herself on her phone for the last 3 minutes, standing in the aisle, leaning over this old man's seat, pointing at his hat, saying things that cut through the music like a blade. The old man isn't responding, he's not arguing. He's just sitting there staring straight ahead, hands folded in his lap, trying to disappear, trying to enjoy a concert he's been looking forward to for months. The kind of man who doesn't make waves. The kind who spent a lifetime swallowing insults because fighting back never seemed worth it. But Toby Keith saw it. From the stage, through the lights, across a sea of faces, he saw it. And now everyone's waiting to see what happens next. The silence stretches. Someone in the balcony coughs. A baby cries somewhere near the back. Toby steps away from the mic stand and walks to the edge of the stage, shielding his eyes from the lights, peering down into the crowd like he's trying to confirm what he thinks he just saw. His security team is already moving, but he raises one hand and they freeze. He wants to handle this himself. "Ma'am," Toby's voice cuts through the PA system, calm but sharp enough to slice steel. "You mind stepping back from that gentleman for a second?" The woman turns. She looks up at the stage with this expression that's half shock, half defiance. Like she can't believe she's being called out. Like she's the victim here. Her phone is still in her hand, still recording, and you can see the gears turning in her head. This is content, this is validation, this is her moment. If you're a patriot and a supporter of Toby Keith, subscribe to this channel and support our work. "I'm exercising my free speech," she says, loud enough that the people around her can hear, but not loud enough to reach the stage without Toby's mic picking up the murmur. "This man is wearing a symbol of hate and I have every right to—" Toby cuts her off, and his voice drops an octave. "Ma'am, I don't care what he's wearing. I care that you're standing over an elderly man who's minding his own business, and you're making him uncomfortable in a place where he came to have a good time. So I'm going to ask you one more time. Step back, sit down, or apologize to him." The crowd erupts. Half of them cheer, half of them gasp. The other half don't know what the hell to do because this isn't part of the show, and nobody came here for a political confrontation. But Toby Keith didn't build a career on playing it safe, and he's not about to start now. The woman doesn't move. She stands there, phone out, recording everything, and she shakes her head. "I'm not apologizing to someone who supports—" "Then you're done here." Toby's words land like a judge's gavel. He nods to his security team, and within seconds, 2 men in black shirts are moving down the aisle. The woman starts talking faster, louder, something about her rights, about paying for a ticket, about how she's being silenced for speaking truth to power, but Toby's already turned his back. He's walking toward the old man's section, motioning for the house lights to come up just enough so he can see clearly. The security team reaches the woman. They're professional. They're calm. They ask her to come with them. She refuses. She plants her feet and starts shouting about being assaulted, about being removed by force, about how this is going to be all over the news. And she's right about that last part. But what she doesn't realize yet is that the story isn't going to play out the way she thinks it will. Because while she's being escorted out, still filming, still shouting, Toby Keith is crouching down at the edge of the stage, talking to the old man. The mic doesn't pick up what he's saying, but you can see it on the old man's face. Confusion, embarrassment, relief, gratitude. Toby reaches out, shakes the man's hand, says something that makes him smile, and then motions to one of his crew. Within minutes, the old man is being led through the crowd, not out of the arena, but toward the stage, toward the VIP section, toward a seat so close to Toby Keith that he'll be able to see every bead of sweat, every guitar pick, every word spoken into that microphone. The crowd loses their minds. People are standing, people are crying, people are pulling out their phones because they understand they're watching something that doesn't happen at concerts. This isn't a publicity stunt. This is a man making a choice in real time about what kind of country he wants to live in and what kind of values he's willing to defend when the lights are on and the world is watching. Toby gets back to the mic, adjusts his guitar and says, "All right, where were we?" And the band kicks back in like nothing happened, but everything happened, and everyone knows it. The concert finishes 2 hours later. Toby plays every song on the set list. He pours everything into that performance because that's what professionals do. But when the lights go down and the crowd files out, Toby doesn't leave. He finds the old man backstage. They talk for 20 minutes. The old man's name is Bill. He's 75. He's a Vietnam vet. He drove 3 hours to get to this show because Toby Keith's music reminds him of his son, who served in Iraq and didn't come home. Bill mentions almost offhandedly that he's been putting off cataract surgery because he can't afford it. His vision's getting worse, but he's on a fixed income and the procedure isn't covered and he's been managing, just managing. Toby doesn't say much. He listens, he nods, and then he pulls out his phone, makes a call, and within 10 minutes he's arranged for Bill's surgery to be fully paid for at a clinic 2 towns over. Bill tries to refuse, tries to say it's too much, but Toby won't hear it. "You served your country," Toby says. "You sacrificed more than most people ever will. If I can help you see clearly again, that's the least I can do." Bill cries. Toby hugs him. And that's supposed to be the end of the story. A private moment between 2 men who understand sacrifice and respect and the quiet dignity of helping someone without making a spectacle of it. But this is 2024. Nothing stays private. The woman who was removed from the concert uploads her video within an hour. It goes viral immediately. The headlines write themselves. Toby Keith forcibly removes woman from concert for criticizing MAGA hat. Country star silences free speech. Ejects paying customer. The activist outlets pick it up. The think pieces start rolling in. The woman does interviews. She cries on camera. She talks about being traumatized, about being physically intimidated by security, about how Toby Keith used his platform to protect hate speech and silence dissent. The story spreads like wildfire. It's everywhere. CNN runs a segment. MSNBC brings on a panel to discuss whether concert venues are public forums and whether artists have the right to remove audience members for political expression. The woman's GoFundMe for legal fees raises $30,000 in 2 days. She's booked on podcasts. She's writing an op-ed for HuffPost. She's the hero of her own story, the brave teacher who stood up to a country music bully and paid the price. But then the other footage surfaces. Someone in the crowd was filming too, multiple people actually, and their videos show a very different story. They show the woman standing over Bill for a full 3 minutes before Toby stopped the show. They show her pointing at his hat, leaning into his personal space, saying things like, "You should be ashamed, and people like you are what's wrong with this country," while Bill sits there silent, staring straight ahead, clearly uncomfortable, clearly trying not to engage. The videos show her blocking the aisle, show her ignoring requests from people around her to sit down, show her turning this into a performance long before Toby ever said a word. The narrative flips overnight. Now the headlines read differently. Viral video shows full context. Teacher harassed elderly veteran before removal. Toby Keith defended senior citizen from activists' harassment. The woman's social media gets flooded. The think pieces pivot. Suddenly the conversation isn't about free speech or MAGA hats or political expression. It's about respect, about basic human decency, about whether it's ever acceptable to humiliate a stranger in public because you don't like their hat. Bill doesn't want to be part of the story. He's a private man, but a local news station tracks him down and he agrees to one interview. He's soft-spoken, humble. He says he wasn't trying to cause trouble, he just wanted to enjoy the music. He talks about his son, about why Toby Keith's songs matter to him. And when the reporter asks about the surgery, about Toby's generosity, Bill's voice cracks. "I didn't expect anything from that night except some good music," he says. "I got a whole lot more than that. I got reminded that there are still good people in this world." The interview airs and it breaks something open in the national conversation. People start sharing their own stories. Veterans talking about being harassed for their service. Elderly folks describing being mocked for their political beliefs. Regular people tired of being told that respect is conditional, that dignity is negotiable, that humiliation is justified if the target holds the wrong opinions. The cultural battle lines that seemed so clear start to blur, because it's hard to watch a 75-year-old man talk about his dead son and his failing eyesight and still believe that he deserved to be publicly shamed for wearing a hat. Toby Keith doesn't comment on any of it. He doesn't release a statement. He doesn't go on the defensive or the offensive. He just keeps touring, keeps playing shows, keeps being exactly who he's always been. But the story follows him. At every concert, there are signs. "Thank you for defending Bill." Real patriots respect their elders. People wear MAGA hats more openly now, almost daring someone to say something, knowing that Toby won't tolerate harassment in his venues. And people who would never wear that hat show up too, because they respect what Toby did. The principle of it, the guts it took to stop a show and risk the backlash because an old man was being mistreated. The woman eventually deletes her social media. The GoFundMe gets refunded. She loses her teaching position, not because of her politics, but because the school board determines that publicly humiliating a senior citizen reflects poorly on her judgment and professionalism. She gives one final interview where she insists she's the real victim, that she's been doxxed and threatened and destroyed for exercising her rights. And maybe that's true. Maybe the internet went too far. Maybe the consequences were disproportionate. But the question nobody can answer is this: what did she think was going to happen when she spent 3 minutes berating an old man at a concert? What was the end game? What did she win? Bill gets his surgery 3 weeks later. The doctor says it's a complete success. His vision is restored. He sends Toby a thank you card with a photo of himself at the concert, sitting in that VIP seat, grinning like a kid. Toby frames it and keeps it in his tour bus. He doesn't talk about it in interviews, doesn't use it for PR. It's just a reminder, a quiet, private reminder that sometimes the right thing to do is the unpopular thing. That sometimes defending someone's dignity matters more than avoiding controversy. Years later, people still talk about that night. It becomes one of those cultural moments that gets referenced in debates about civility, about free speech, about the limits of tolerance. Some people use it as proof that the left has gone too far, that performative activism has replaced genuine compassion. Other people argue that Toby Keith had no right to remove someone from a venue, that he abused his power, that he chose one person's comfort over another person's expression. The arguments go round and round, endless and exhausting, because that's what America does with everything now. We turn human moments into political footballs, and we forget that real people were involved. But Bill doesn't forget, and Toby doesn't forget. And the 15,000 people who were there that night don't forget. They remember the silence when the music stopped. They remember the choice that was made. They remember that for one night, in one place, somebody decided that an old man's dignity mattered more than the noise. And maybe that doesn't solve anything. Maybe it doesn't change the culture, or heal the divide, or make the argument stop. But it mattered to Bill, and sometimes that's enough. Did you like Toby's reaction to the activist? If so, comment his name below and don't forget to subscribe.